Recording in progress.
I go back to Plunkett. And they were no good.
So we're recording already?
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order, given the understanding of how our charter works here is we are constitute a quorum is our appointed members, and at this time we only have 4, but 3 of us are present, so I'm going to do a roll call. Bill Groves, Commissioner.
George Methanol, Commissioner.
Robert Boris, Commissioner.
Okay, so David, you're on. I thought I saw him up there. How you doing, David?
Yes, hi, I'm here. Oh,
Okay, very lean, so that this is gonna probably be a very quick meeting. Unless someone wants to take the floor. So, public communications, I do not see anyone up on the board. Are we aware of anyone that wanted to speak this evening?
No.
Okay, hearing none. Approval of minutes. Our last meeting was September 1st, 2022. Minutes were included in the package. Do we have any changes, additions, amendments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion approved. Have a
second.
George is a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Old business. Just to refresh, several months ago, Rachel, the town councilor, Franco, I should say, came before the commission and asked our some guidance and maybe some recommendations from the commission regarding the vacant properties that we currently have downtown, primarily on the Main Street down there. Bob has gone in. I've done some of my own fact finding with some of the business owners and people that were looking at it. But I'm going to pass that over to Bob.
So, yeah, I've done some background looking at it. Basically, my recommendation here would be to pass forward a no recommendation to Rachel at this time. Primarily, we don't have the staff here. We're sort of in transition ourselves. And, you know, with the economic climate the way it is, I think we need to really have something thought through if we're going to recommend any action on that level. And I just don't think that we're prepared to do so at that time. So I would just say she asked for if we weren't going to give anything, to just pass that forward, that we don't have any recommendation at this time.
Yeah, I guess I would concur with that. I do have anecdotal information from some people that had been looking at some of the buildings that she had mentioned. And that's all it is. It's anecdotal from the standpoint of valuations, where the owner of the building says, well, it's worth this. And the prospective buyer is saying, well, the building's not worth anything to me. And I don't really think we have any other recommendations than that. I think what we should do is, as we can expand the commission once again, maybe taking it up a little bit further, but out of fairness.
Yeah, I would just acknowledge that it's a great question, why she's posing it and asking us for the input. I understand the objective to promote economic development. I just don't think, as you said, it's anecdotal of what we've collected here ourselves, and we haven't constructive with anything further than that right now.
Another fair point is what the current economic situation is even to entertain recommendations on maybe looking at a possible fee structure for whatever that's like that. I don't ever think that's a good idea when we're facing, possible recessions and such. So I just, that would be my only recommendation, is maybe there's something we table for now and bring up at a time that maybe it's a little bit more appropriate, but we'll go with that. So just respond, if you don't mind, just responding to
so if I,
yes, please.
so just pushing it off to nebulous, why don't we just say, let's come back to it in March or April, second quarter or first quarter next year, and hopefully by then we have boosted up the membership, and there's a time frame. So have find members by then, and then get something done instead of just pushing it to summer. So I would suggest make it April next year.
So table it until the commission would like to table it until April, and then we'll relook at it. Maybe we can take it up then, or maybe again, we can push it. Fair enough. I think that's a good way of handling it. So Rob, if you would convey that over to Councilor Franco.
Thank you.
Okay, well, next, this is something always there, we have to elect officers for, excuse me, the upcoming year. Officers, basically the three positions, chairman, vice chairman, and secretary. We got three people here. I've made it known. Though I can say that I've done before is we can nominate and assign people that haven't attended the meeting. That's one of the downfalls of not showing up. You're volunteered. I am not seeking the chairmanship again. I've done 3 years. So I made that known beforehand. I think there was an agreement before, so we're going to start with the chairman position. I'd like to nominate Robert Boris as the new commission chairman. Do I have a second?
I second.
Do we have any discussion? Robert, would you like to discuss it?
I'm grateful and I'm very appreciative and looking forward to taking on the challenge of working with everyone here and anyone else we can scare up to promote economic development.
So hearing no other discussion, all in favor?
I
Opposed? Congratulations, Rob, the new chairman of the commission. For the vice chairman position, and yes,
can because there's only 3, so again, we could all vote for Susan Dowling to be the secretary, but I think in the due process, maybe, I don't know, we could put this in the charter, we could leave it to the town manager and to review it, but why don't we keep the other 2 positions? Well, we don't have a vice chair. Just have the chair for the time being for next 2 months.
now I would actually I would always refer this to Lauren because she's she's very versed on so, but I'll defer to Paige. Is that allowable under the way the rules are set? Because the way I saw it, if you elect them, you're supposed to have 3 positions. So I agree with you.
I don't think we refined the bylaws since many years ago. We are supposed to push up on the ranks, and
Which is the way it should be.
well, that's the way.
That's how we learn.
That's how we structure.
Yeah.
But lacking any new bodies, and it was rather unfortunate. I was hoping Michael Whitehouse would be taking on that role as the vice chair and then moving up as it goes. So we are coming to a certain conundrum here. We don't have the bodies. We can't keep putting on. I don't mind being the interim VC, but we still need interim.
No. But I'm glad you bring that up.
But I would suggest we also push the remaining vote for the other elected officers to the second quarter of next year.
The only thing I would say about secretary, and this is what the main function of secretary is they are the ones that are actually the minutes. And as an officer of the commission, they're verifying our minutes. So it is something, even though Lauren does a great job, and I know I held that position when I first came on board. It is a position that they need to be recorded and signed off on by a commission officer. But I've also known that the chairman is able to sign off in lieu of. Yes. So that's not necessarily a major problem.
But if I can add on,
Yep.
the whole reason we did that was in the past. We had no recording, we had no minutes taken down, we had nobody putting pen to paper of what was discussed. So then we established the process of having town staff record every minute of conversation. Then subsequently, we ended up having voice recording. Then eventually now we have video recording. But in the past, we had none of those. And it was fairly arbitrary on what was in the minutes,
Yeah, and
which we don't have to suffer that now.
might have worked fine then, but I know from statutory standpoints, and I would assume our commission is under that, is minutes do need to be filed in any public meeting within a time limit.
48 hours.
Those are state rules. Those aren't even our commission rules. Because it's public, it's a public meeting. Video, I think, is now allowed to be substituted. And as I said, those are technicalities, and I think the chairman has every ability to sign off on minutes, just like a secretary does.
Yes.
In lieu of.
Yeah. Yes.
From the vice chair position, and it was something, if you were here, I was gonna have the conversation with you, though.
Ah.
I've made my intentions known that I'm staying on the commission itself until we get the membership back up again. So I'm not gonna sit back and say that, I'm gonna let it ride. I've already pledged to Rob that I will work with him to get him up on those things. From seniority and for what you've done to this commission, I really was deferring because you have the knowledge of saying I put the vice chairman position to you first because I don't need the title, but I'm willing to do it on an interim basis because once we have something to move up. So I know what I'm willing to do.
So
You are always
going
going
to be the past chair,
Right.
so you
you
will,
will always retain that mentorship role. So perhaps then, as we're going back to the idea, the chair could sign off on the minutes, or I could play on as a role as an interim
Right.
secretary.
to sign off as well, so the option is.
Right. So my aspect was that either would be, even if I did the vice chair, it would be an interim basis. And I just try to be clear on that, and I'm fine with that aspect of it. So I just would rather have us to have the positions, and if you're willing to do the interim secretary to do that.
Let's do
have
that.
3 officers, and then when we go
So
forward.
you stay on as a vice chair.
Yep, and then I leave it to Rob to make sure that these things are addressed with future members and such, so. So with that, we need nominations and go through the process. I know it's silly, but that's just the way it is.
I nominate Bill for.
And I'll accept that nomination on an interim basis. George, are you seconding that nomination?
I'm certainly seconding.
All in favor?
I,
Okay. Then I'll nominate George as the secretary.
Second.
I got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we got that done, and as I said, I think the core group will be fine going forward, and I'll address the aspects of some prospects we have in the chair.
I think you can change those at any time.
Correct,
You just.
correct.
re-put
I
it.
mean, it's as simple as saying I resign the position, but I think it's good, at least we have it in place.
Yeah.
So that's all. Yeah, I do that. So, but thank you for the feedback. Okay, meeting schedule for 2023 is the next item coming up. So this is our draft meeting, which is where we always have a couple issues is the summertime. So looking from this, since we always meet a thing, July 6th is the Thursday right after, so the 4th is falling on a Tuesday. A lot of people don't like to meet right after that type of holiday. So that's one that we've looked at before to change, so we can do it for the following Thursday. And the other one that we did this past summer is, since we didn't have any pending business, we just took the August meeting off and did that. I guess my proposal will be at this point in time is, since we're sitting in December, is just to keep those in mind, that we can vote on the schedule as presented and then entertain those changes at another time when you have other members to discuss it, because who can tell you that nothing's going on in July that we need to have a meeting in August. So I'd rather not just say, hey, we're taking August off. It's something that we can determine in July. Say, okay, so there was something pending. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the 2023 regular meeting schedule that Lauren will post. Motion.
second,
All in favor?
I,
Okay, meetings are approved. Bylaws. Every year, we just reaffirm the bylaws that we have presented here. George had mentioned some of the things we're coming across here. Do we want to look at changing and stuff like that? My perspective is this is not the time to be changing anything. There's nothing in here that glares at me. It's like, oh, this is something that we've come across that we need to address. I would just say, take a look at them, go through them. If we want to raise something in the future, especially when new members come on board, that might change. But I didn't see, I went through them and I was like, okay, everything's pretty straightforward here, and they've served us to this point. Yes, Paige.
I was just noting, that changes can be made at any time.
Correct.
And actually, if you look at a copy in the packet, it says amended and adopted February 6, 2020. So that proves that the EDC has made changes in the past at times that do not align with November of any year. So I think that aligns with what you're saying. If we get more members and people want to make changes in the future, we can do so.
And I can't even remember what the amendment was back in 2020, but if I have my remember it correctly, it came from one of our former board chairs prior to me that, and I can't remember what the change was, so. Was it the order of business?
It may have
I
been,
think it was.
could have been, at some point in the past, we made some change to the officer succession.
Okay,
The officer could serve 1 year, but can serve additional terms. I think we made it.
that was pre-me. I think the only one.
That was years back.
The thing is that we wrestled over about the process of what our.
Oh, that's right. That
The
is.
process for the meeting. I was like,
Yes. That's
So-
right.
so that being said, I'll entertain a motion to adopt or re-adopt the bylaws as written. Motion. Do I have a second? Second. All approved? All in favor? All right, that is approved also. Bylaws. Annual report. We are required to provide an annual report. In my 3 years, I have provided an annual report. I use a bullet format. I have. COVID was a little bit different. I made the attempt this year to present it to the council, and we also had the issue that was they were addressing at the time, and we got bumped from that meeting, and then I wasn't ever invited back. That's not here nor there, but they were presented, and they've always been presented to them. Same way I will work with Bob, because he'll be the presenter, at least presenting them to them, whether he goes before them or not. But the one spot on this, and it actually ties to the second part on the agenda for the annual report, is the goals. Feedback for goals come from all the commission members. It's not something that as chair, I felt that I was the driving force behind it. Of course, I'm sure Rob has his own goals for his position and in the commission. So George being here with Susan, just go over with any of the new commissioners come in to what do you want to accomplish here? Because we've had a lot of great ideas that have come out, and unfortunately the follow through hasn't been what we want. So I always go from the standpoint of trying to make them manageable and achievable. And whether we like it or not, some of the ones we've tried just for some reason have not been achievable. So that's going forward. So just think about it. Think about what your goals are. I will add to that. I will help you with my ideas, and you can draft it any way you want to. If you like to use a lot of words, I just prefer to use a bullet presentation and then explain it in words. So annual report and the goals tied together. Chairman report. Yep.
Chair, I just asked Sam, can you check to see if that attendee's a phone number, see if that's Susan? No.
Just do it.
Okay, thank you.
So for my report, there's a couple things here. First, we've already discussed, but one I've made it clear is my time of chairman, of course, has been passed on, which, as I said, I'm committed to help Rob through the process and just to try to give him some insight that I've encountered. I'm also committed to what I had stated for our goals this year, and the only member that brought forward from candidacy was Rob, which I think has been very successful. We look at it a little bit different with chair being involved in it. We do have 2 candidates. So it's not like it's my standpoint is, oh, this is just, we're going to be sitting here with 4 people. There are people that are interested, but we want to make sure we get the right people that are interested. And the 2 candidates, one is coming from Thayer Mahan. Unfortunately, the appointment we had due to illness had to be postponed. And then another one that Paige has been in contact with, who comes from a former Pfizer employee, I believe. So have the right mindset of what really. I mean, George knows better than any of us because you've been doing it a while, and your commitment to staying on the commission is, you handle it your aspect, Susan, the same way. I do it my way, but as a whole, it brings value to what we're supposed to be doing here. That has got to be the commitment of everyone. So we got 4 people now, 2 prospects, and maybe those work out. But if you know people that really want to get into what we're supposed to be doing here, it behooves everyone to bring them on board. I look at everything this way because we're a 5-year term, and that might make people go like 5 years. I say it's people even I hire. Give me a year. Give me 12 months. If you don't like it after 12 months, nothing says you got to stay here, and see how you like it. That's not as a daunting a commitment to people. I always find that people that do it for 12 months and you get the 12 months comes up, they're like, hey, that's not bad. And then they might continue on. But that's my approach to things is if you do it for a year, I'll take it, because even if it's a quality year, it's better than where we are at this point in time, but people just sitting here kind of going through it. So recruitment is the key for us at this point in time. There's a lot of discouragement from people I've spoken to because of the negative press that's been out there, that a bit of personal attacks that have gone on, not only from the commission standpoint, but also from people that we're trying to bring in as developers and such. When I first came on board and the people I've sat with here, there was a lot of positive vibes with what was going on. We all jumped on it. I don't know if you joined us on that, George, but Paige put us all in a van and took us on all the different places that we were promoting across, not the state, across the region. And Sam and Paige had been going to Boston and New York and really, and I say it all the time, is we are blessed with a just class department of economic development. So they do most of the heavy lifting for us. But then a lot of that kind of is soured for some reason. And what we have to do is kind of deal with what we have and keep on promoting the development of things, because it's still a desirable place to come to. So I guess our charge at that point is to try to bring down some of the barriers that inhibit people from, because remember, it's their money. It's developers' money. David McBride is heading up, and David's on the line. The council has taken to make a committee or to look at the town-owned properties, the schools and maybe properties like that, with the criteria. And they invited a member of the EDC to sit, so we have a seat at the table. Unfortunately, because we've had lost members and such like that, and the timing, we really haven't been able to respond to that. Rob and I did speak on Tuesday. He has agreed as the new chair to represent the commission on David's commission or his committee. And we'll see what that's all about. I mean, I know where they're coming from. I just don't have enough feedback for the commission to say, yeah, this is so. Rob will report back and we'll go from there. And we'll see if we can make that work on that side too, and maybe having a voice from that standpoint. So that's really all I have I didn't for anything for the chairman report, did I? That's all we went over. Thank you. So we covered that. My last chair report. And that I'll pass it over to my favorite, the staff report.
Okay, so Chair talked about EDC nominees, prospects. I did meet with an individual. I'm hesitant to mention names until we get through the process, but successful meeting Monday evening. Hopefully that individual will want to come back and have conversations with the vice chair and the chair. Interim, right? And then had detailed conversations with the representative from Fayette Mahan, who had initially been contacted by George. So thank you, George, for that. And George has actually put forward a couple names. So he's been working on that front. Unfortunately, the Thayer Mahan representative contacted us, I think the day before or maybe the day of, and had COVID. So we are working on it and we're hoping to get the right people. It's not just as was mentioned. Not in my report. I think most people know that Sam and I, we do more than sit here in this building. We do our best to be proactive and get outside of Groton, and in many cases outside of the state. Next week, we will be in New York City, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at the ICSC conference, which we have gone to for numerous years. And we also go to Boston, and they used to have it in Hartford. They haven't in a few years. We used to do that as well. We have a table, which is uncommon for most municipalities, but our objective is to continue to promote Groton and get us on the map. And the good thing is that people recognize us year after year. Hey, you've been coming for a few years, and we keep doing it. And we tend to think long term, it really helps. On Tuesday, also not in the report, I went to the Connecticut Economic Summit, which was in New Haven at Yale. Pretty successful, hundreds of economic participants, governor, DECD representatives, locals, etc. And it was interesting format. It was fun as well, humorous at times. There's actually a video. They recorded the whole thing. One of the segments, they actually did a talk on the stage where they invited Kevin Graney, the president of EB, and David Lehman from DECD, just kind of had a casual conversation. It was most fascinating. Now, we know the story about EB, but hearing him in front of hundreds of people in Connecticut to talk about our story, it was a one-on-one. They didn't break it down. It was whatever, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And he said the number of hirees or hires is going up beyond what they originally thought. And he basically said, we're now looking at 3,000 new hires every year for 2 decades. And it really made an impression. People were pretty excited about that. It's not a 1 year, it's a year over year. And it definitely has captured the attention of people throughout the state. So I just want to bring that up. Just jumping into some of the highlights, our ARPA funding, we're still dealing with the council on that at the moment. We went before them November 15th. And next Tuesday, staff from the department will be before the council recommending next steps on how to engage directly with certain applicants. We're dealing with multi-million on that. Community Challenge Grant. This is great news. And I have to give a lot of credit to Sam on this. We're obviously a team, but we worked for a while to put together an idea for grant funding through the state. Sam was the one that really put the puzzle together, did the final details. Even after its submittal, dealing with all the questions, the inquiries daily from the state. We are finalists for that award, and I'm gonna wait until we get the notice, but I think it's great news. Hopefully over the next few weeks, we'll hear how great it was, but it deals with Pequannock Road, number of housing developments, and also some commercial interests, and that's combined with some of the projects that the town is doing as well. So it definitely caught the attention of the state, and I think they view it as one of the greatest submittals that they had received for this program to date. So hopefully I won't eat my words, but that's what I'm hearing.
Can you just, because Quantic Road is a large area, so what area is being kind of targeted for this? It's part of a plan, so that's why I think it's, they could put a little bit more visual to it.
Sure. I think most, let me back up a little bit, most of the projects that the state receives are single parcel only. And it was somewhat of a gamble for us to submit something larger than one parcel, but we did that. We tried to connect it to downtown with a future train station, with redevelopment of our downtown. But basically, the core area where improvements will be made is from the former massage school all the way up to 117 at Grassel Gardens. So that's kind of the corridor, but we also heavily emphasize the library, Thrive 55, and that many of the partners that we had in this project are successful already. They're not starting new. This is a second phase attempt to build on what they already have in the ground. And I think it was well received.
The reason why I just, if George knows, when I first started here, the whole buzz thing was sense of place. We're trying to find sense of place. And there's that corridor there that has all the ability to give us the sense of place, but it's really been just sat there. The development was never in a plan. It just kind of evolved, and that's what we have. So I've always said is you find a spot like that, and once you do it, then things grow off of that. So even with this initial, and keep our fingers crossed that we get the funding that we're looking for, it'll also be exponential as we see other people coming in and expand off of it on both ways. So I think that's probably the biggest news. And as I said, we keep our mouths shut until we know for sure. But that goes back to what I was saying before, is we really are blessed in the town of Groton with an economic development team that you don't see in most communities. Because regardless, they just keep working. So great, that's great news, Paige. Thanks.
Perfect segue as well to talk about the Community Investment Fund. That's kind of a cousin to this Community Challenge Grant, and Sam will be leading a couple of those initiatives as well. We went before the council and basically put forward 3 ideas, and we are going to proceed forward on that. This is a heavily well-funded program at the state level as well. And the segue is, since we're dealing with Pequannock, one of the top projects will be the Thames Valley Council for Community Action, TVCCA, who has a daycare need. And they want to build an entirely new facility. They will take the lead on that. We will play a supporting role, but that's squarely in that Pequannock area as well. So we're hoping to use success from the challenge grant to help us leverage additional funding for TVCCA. And then the other 2 projects would be Groton Heights, although Mayor Mahan is working with us on that. There's some significant environmental contamination. And we're hoping to get some grant funding to help, to expedite that. And then Pleasant Valley, even though we went through a process before, we had a number of developers interested. The first one didn't quite work out, and we think it would be advantageous to demolish the building, prep the site. When the council's ready, then we can move forward and attract the appropriate development. So those are due January 6th, I think. So we've just got a few days.
So the demo and set prep would be based on a grant. We'd be
Yes.
a grant on that.
Yeah. Yeah, demolition is Sealy. And that wasn't even done by the town. It was done privately, so it's gonna be cheaper. That was over $1 million. And they left a lot of the debris on site. If we do it, it's gonna have to be clean, environmental remediation, remove the debris. We're probably looking at something around $2 million.
What's the status of the Gloucester?
Claude Chester, council ultimately has to make a decision on that. We've gone through the public engagement process. But I think we're still kind of deliberating on what the final use would be.
Could the TVCCA pick up that spare spot?
It's a pretty good idea. There's certainly a need for daycare. EB, Pfizer talks about it all the time. I think that's a worthy discussion.
And even without those 2 players, there's still a need for it. So yeah, it's tough.
Okay, just let's see, we did a presentation to the RTM. Every once in a while, they like us to come before them. We did a little bit differently. We actually led with our challenges, the macroeconomic challenges, rather than paint this great story. We have some serious headwind. And so we wanted to be honest about that. And then we also talked about the opportunities in the back end. In terms of public property, the only thing that's really advancing at this point is Colonel Ledyard. And the developer that we are in agreements with, Bellsite, they just submitted their plans to the city's planning and zoning for the multifamily housing. So strangely, that's our smallest project, but it's the one that has advanced the most. I think the last point I would make, we always have our metrics that you can read on your own, but the last point, there's a slight uptick on our unemployment percentage, but that could be a seasonal fluctuation. But we have been tracking those through COVID, and we were going down for a while. It seems to have bottomed and maybe slightly climbing. And that's also the case with the state, although it's 0.1%. It is going up a little bit. I think that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the commission?
So you both are going off to lovely New York City. While you're there, could you try and see this vendor by the name of the Halal Group,
How do you spell it?
HALAL? If that chain could set up base camp here too.
Are they at the conference or is it a development?
It's a one of those like Popeyes.
Papa?
Popeyes. McDonald's. but
You're saying
Popeyes.
it's like a quick service restaurant.
Yeah,
It's a quick service restaurant.
I didn't know there was a term.
It's an industry term.
Okay. Halal Group. They don't have a
Site in,
Connecticut. But they have in New York quite a
Where,
bit,
where is it in New York?
all over. But the fact is, we want to be, again, when it says halal is the way of preparation, it's just like kosher food, which is about the same actually. The fact that we're having all this influx of new people and supply chains and employees coming in for EB,
Sit down.
I think they do both.
They can go in the former 99.
Yeah, that's true. So it's a value
proposition for them to come to.
to a place where they're going to be growing by 3,000 new employees every year.
Good market for
Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan.
For childcare, has EB or Pfizer worked with the town for anything before in the past for this? Is there any way we could discuss further what they're doing to support with that inflow of new hires and things? It seems like an issue that's just gonna get.
Well, they identify a need. I'm interpreting your comment like work with the town in terms of financially, or they don't usually step up and say, we want to partner and build a facility or fund it.
Pfizer used to have a facility.
What's that?
Pfizer used to have a daycare.
Yeah, Pfizer, yeah. EB, and I got this when I came on because we were dealing with the, it was coming out. We build submarines. You guys built the housing and stuff like that. The feedback I've gotten a little bit is they're changing their tune a little bit in that HR area from we build submarines, you guys do this too. Maybe we should be a little bit more supportive because they're having a very difficult time with those numbers that they need to produce. And the government holds them responsible for the numbers, not.
I think it also
Yeah.
goes,
It's cash for them because that's a way for them to entice.
workers to come here too.
Sure.
We could say we also provide childcare, so it's a
Or subsidize or.
subsidized, so it's a win-win for them because to try and get 3,000 people,
People, it's not easy.
Do we know where those decisions get made in Virginia, or are they here? Like, who is deciding the way they support? There, yeah. Is there any way to have a conversation?
Yeah, am I right on what I said though? We build submarines has been their mentality.
Yeah, I've been there for 7 years and I even made the mistake of thinking EB is kind of like that corner store, like you just go talk to them and tell them what you need. They are part of General Dynamics, a publicly traded corporation. And it's not so simple to get them to make a local decision to invest in something within the community. even though it might be needed.
It's a new thing for them because unlike any other defense operator, contractor like Pratt and Whitney, they have a commercial side and they appreciate and recognize that. EB only has one customer in the last 100 years.
No, I guess the only leverage we have is just, as I said, there's some feedback from people I know that work in HR and EB and stuff like that. Is the tone's changing a little bit because the government holds them responsible for the numbers they need. So it doesn't come back, so we might be able to say, if we get a cut, is, hey, we're here, you're having a tough time hiring these numbers, maybe we can help. They might be more receptive because that's just my understanding. So I can further that my contact, she works out of the Newport market. But I say it's the same there as it is here. Is they're a bit under the gun, because they throw those numbers up. We need 3,000 people and they're finding that we don't have 3,000 people lining up to come work for EB.
It's a good point. If they have to meet Navy requirements.
Yeah,
We
they-
can make it easier by working together. They listen a little bit better.
Government contracts have a lot of little things written in there where they can be paying a lot, if they can't come through with what they're saying. So
The biggest thing with childcare is trying to find people to do the actual childcare.
correct.
The building's one thing, but hiring people, because we always have, always looking for folks. It's tough.
Well,
Yeah,
tying it in with the TVCC saying is then you say, okay, now we can actually supply you number, it might all be a something to bring all together at one point. And then EB's got a little bit of incentive saying, we also subsidize some childcare here, might induce people to be more apt.
So TVCC has a small childcare in New London. And it's easy for them to set up something over here for
They have one here.
childcare center.
Yeah, it's on Central Ave.
They need more though.
It's only 85 seats. They want to go up to
Oh.
about 150. And that still is not going to satisfy the demand.
No, not at all, but you tie it into other people that want to come in and you give someone a market.
it's a huge need.
Oh, Colchester, you have all the playground, everything is still there.
You can't find childcare and it's going to be a point
It's so
now.
expensive.
Well, it's expense, but even the people that can afford the
Can't
expense,
find it.
they're on a waiting list.
Yeah, you can't find it.
So,
Yeah, it's a huge waiting list.
yeah, it's a very hot button topic in general for all us employers.
I see.
We did the survey during COVID when small businesses were coming back online. What are your small business issues? Number one, they said labor. Then they talked about supply chain materials, et cetera. Number three, childcare, because if their workers do not have adequate childcare, they don't come to work.
They don't,
Yeah, we see that at the base all the time. It's just, it's,
and what do you do? It's a,
yeah, it's, yeah, it's universal.
we call them call outs, but it's usually that's the reason.
Somebody's got.
Call outs. I mean,
Call outs.
and I say that, all right, I do it. I have several offices, so I might have 4 call outs a day but if you talk to any restaurant and any employer in the area, it's just like, hey, what happened? I had 2 call outs. I had 2 call outs. Most of the time, call outs are from childcare,
Sick children or.
sick children,
Yeah.
and we always do
Yeah.
that first, so. Well, there's just a point to maybe to explore is hit them with another angle. We haven't had great success. Thank you very much for that, Paige. Any other questions for Paige? Okay, liaison reports. I'm gonna start with Stephen, this is right in front of me.
Okay, great. Thank you. You were just talking about supporting the families and using that as a recruiting tool. And I think that's very valuable. And the Navy certainly does that. And I was just at a conference. That's why we have MWR and childcare on base, all that stuff. It is, I guess, technically on base. And all the other programs are trying to keep families happy. I was just at an ADC conference and actually was a really good conference. ADC is Association of Defense Communities. And it's a group that is made up members, the Navy and whatnot are members of it, but it's mainly made up of communities that have military bases within their towns, like Groton could be a member or in London or and it's, their whole goal is to try and make these communities more military friendly, to have better communications, to have, to talk about all the different programs and ways to improve, cooperation and all that. It was a really good conference. We had a lot of interesting sessions that I went to. And one thing that somebody from the Marines, one of the Marine commanders that was there was mentioning, they have a saying, they recruit the Marine, but they retain the family. And again, it's the same thing. You got to keep the families happy. You got to have the child care. You got to have the services. And it's important. So anyway, so we had our big Pier 32 ribbon cutting, which is a picture there in the flyer. It's a huge project on base, been going on for the last couple of years, but really been in planning for the past 5+ years. $65+ million project. It's going to allow us to continue to berth the Virginia class and the old LA class boats there for years to come. Very large investment by the Navy in the base, which shows the support for it, which is great. And within a year or so, hopefully, we're going to be starting another one. We're going to expand the Pier 31, which is one of our newer piers. We're going to make that a little bit longer to take the new Block 5 submarines that are like 80 feet longer than the ones we have now. So that's going to happen. Then after that, we're going to do a new Pier 8. So that's 3 big pier projects that'll hopefully be done here in the coming years. So that's exciting. Plus, of course, we're redoing our weapons compound as well. So lots of investment up there, which is exciting.
Whole day.
Yes, windy. Luckily, there was warm coffee and sugary desserts to get your blood sugar back up. So I just mentioned that our dry dock actually is in a dry dock, which I thought was kind of funny. The last job they did in it was the Nautilus and went down the river, and it was kind of interesting. So a couple of the things just going to mention, if you do get new members or have members, I don't know how long some of you have been on, or if you've been to the base lately. If anybody wants a tour, let me know. We can always arrange that as a group or individually or whatever, and show you around. Talk a little bit about the ADC. Oh, the other thing I'm just going to mention, which wasn't in my report, is the DSIP grant program is going to be starting to accept applications here in a few months.
What's it?
It's a Defense Communities Infrastructure Program, I believe is what it stands for. And they provide money for communities for any kind of infrastructure projects that would benefit the community and the base. So especially things that the base might be, causing stress on the community in some way, like fire department's not big enough, problems with sewer lines, school issues, things like that. There's money available. It's a very competitive program, but they keep getting more money each year. I think last year they got under 100 million, like 90 million or something. This year they're talking somewhere between 100 and 150 million. So every year to get more money. So just start thinking if you have any projects. The town
Center.
Yeah, the town does the application, but the base has to support you, which we will, obviously. So, start thinking if there's any projects out there.
It's the same thing, Steve, with what OLDCC does.
Yeah, it's part of it's done by OLDC. Yeah.
Okay.
And my predecessor Adam's actually in charge of this program. Not saying that'll help, but it's certainly. So so he's actually, it's kind of his baby. So it's a good program, and we tried to get it a couple of years ago for a sewer pump station. It's at the end of Crystal Lake Road, but unfortunately we found out that was actually on Navy property. And these projects have to be off Navy property. It's really for the community, not for the Navy. Although they're talking about changing that to allow those kinds of situations where there's a lease, like the town's leasing the land. They're talking about changing that. But anyway, that project's already done, so that wouldn't qualify anymore. But certainly think about it, see if there's anything that pops into your head.
Maybe there's something for GU.
We've been in discussion with the DSIP program over the last several years. and
Yeah,
we
you
never
really-
really found a fit, or a perfect fit anyways.
So we're working with GU now to put a grant together to get some final plans together for upgrading some transmission lines and water lines and things. And that would be something that decent.
It could be a stepping stone.
Okay,
For sure.
And with that study, we'll have, we'll have some plans on the table ready to go and estimates and all
so
that.
study first and then.
Yeah, yeah, and that's also an OLDC program, yeah, as well for the resiliency program. So we're gonna. That money's not, it's not really competitive. You just have to qualify for it. So we're thinking we're gonna get it. So hopefully in the next year or two, we'll have that study done. And then we can maybe try to do something through DSIP to fund some of that or all of that.
Can you do me a favor and forward any information you have on that program, the federal program you
Sure.
mentioned? Because, we sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's always doing. And if you send it to us, we can try and certainly get it to the town manager.
Yep.
Who can send it to Public Works and a variety of departments to find out, is there a project we would be interested in?
I can certainly send you the link. It's OLDCC, Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation. If you go right on their website, it's
I
right
just
there.
wrote it down for him, Steve.
Yeah, and it's right there on the front page. I think they're gonna be looking for applications in March or April. It's one of the leaders of that group had the discussion at the ADC conference, said it's always tough for them because they don't know what they're getting for money or the details until the budget is passed. Until the NDAA is passed. And by the time that's passed, the year's already ordered with third done. So then they have to scramble to spend the money by the end of the year. So it's always a challenge for them, but they expect to be taking applications, in beginning of next year.
Is there a resource where we can see previously
Yep,
authorized?
yep,
for all
absolutely.
Community?
Yeah, if you go on,
There's a map in there
yeah.
that shows, if you go to that website that Steve said, you just go to the website, it shows you where all the other 49 states got money.
I could probably bring it up quick and mention a few of,
Connecticut hasn't picked up anything. If I'm not wrong.
I know, the big ex-military base in Mass just got some money from this last year. Devon's. Yeah, here's DSIP here. Let's see if I can find. I was a little slow in here. They have the project. Yeah, so yeah, Fort Devon's got $4.5 million for a new fire station. Eglin Air Force got $3.5 million for a fire station. Someplace up in Alaska got money for $5 million for energy improvements, microgrid, battery storage, etc. There's a whole list of them here. Hanscom got money for a cyber operations center, 1.2 million. Hampton, Virginia got 7 million for joint use firing range. There's all kinds of things that, I mean, it's anything like that would benefit the community. And the base is certainly.
I think one of them got childcare center too.
Yeah, childcare certainly.
Childcare center as well.
No, but I was just saying that helps also from the Navy standpoint, because you got the people that are coming in for the training of the, when we went through that, people rotating in, so that's maybe something else to tie all together.
Anything to do with the welfare. I think that is a term that's used on it.
Yeah, I mean, we understand and obviously people have this program understand that the Navy, well, not only Navy, military bases do put a crimp on the community. I mean, there's issues that arise and this is to help, help smooth some of those out. So it's a great program. We always wish there was more money, but
you build a facility, you bring a private contractor in to run a daycare, you got the facility already set for them.
Is it a one-time grant or can you get a year over year?
no, it's a one-time.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in the ask, you could also put in money for a grant writer as well. Who could then apply for, look for other grants elsewhere.
There's a match that has to be made. I forget what it's 10% at least, but
Well, I leave it to
Thank you.
Sam, because he is extraordinary when it comes to writing these things up. He'll find a way to.
yeah, it can even be used for parks. It can be used for, anything that, that could benefit the town and the base really. So.
That's great. Thank you. Any other questions for Steve? Thank you very much. Aaron's here to tell us that our electric, everyone else's electric's going up, but ours is going down. Take it away, Aaron.
So I did submit my report, so it's in your packet. I will touch base on the cost of power, so that's going up basically for everybody, but I'll touch base on GU standpoint. So in April, we did have a purchase power adjustment that went up 17%. Starting January 1st, we anticipate another additional 9% increase for that. So that equates to essentially a 28% increase in 2022, or $30 per month for our average residential customer. That is highly unusual for GU. And so I don't think that we're naive or blind to the hardships that puts on families. Having said that, starting in January 1st, GU will be 43% below our regional competitor,
That's what I
or
like.
$104 less per month. So providing significant savings for not only our residents, but also the businesses and industries in our community. So I think that's although times are tough and there's certainly some challenges, I think it just proves again that having a municipal owned public power entity is to our advantage in the community. But definitely it's a good year to conserve. Check out Groton Utilities conservation programs. There's a wide variety of programs for our residences and businesses. Now's the time to take advantage of those type of programs. And also, if you feel in the mood to give, feel free to give to Groton Human Services. Groton Utilities will match every dollar that you give to Groton Human Services Energy Assistance Program. So if you're in the giving mood, definitely check that out. Other than that, I'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, the only thing that Aaron started putting on this chart, and I always like to see the grid, and it's unfortunate to see commercial is in 2018, 16, 18 commercial clients for Groton Utilities, and as of today it's 1599. So we have lost some businesses. There is hardship across the board. So that's something we always should also keep in mind. But I always love when he gives his report, because I always hear what we're below the rest of the state, and then all the people that aren't inside our area, that it's like, what are you paying over there in Stonington? Oh, gee, that's not.
I think Eversource just put in for
20,
like 100% increase.
yeah, it was crazy.
On the supply side, supply chart.
Yeah, to give you an idea, their supply charge alone is higher than our all-in cost,
It's like, it'll be like 18, 19 cents or something.
24 cents,
Oh,
just on supply.
Yeah.
Plus another 12 or 13 for the other.
So
I said on average for them, it was like a $75 increase on a monthly basis, and that was on the low side.
it was over $80.
Yeah, well, I think that's when they first came out with
Yeah.
it. They always tried to downside. That's 75. And I was like, okay, so that's
$4.99.
that's more than I pay a month.
It's dramatic. Just to soften it a little bit, it has absolutely nothing to do with Eversource though, but
Oh, no, I know how it works.
It's a fuel cost.
yeah.
Where you have to buy from, you're buying out in the open market, so.
Yeah, I
Do
think
that.
they're kind of, they have certain mandates and regulations, and it's a product of those. So
As a sidebar, I just saw it. I was reading the article on it because I've mentioned this to the page before, because I have friends that in the nuclear, they actually former Navy, and the first approval, I think, from the Department of Energy of a small reactor that can power, I think it was like 60,000 homes. But the beauty of these things is if you put them in, is if there's any problem with them, they shut right down. It's not like you have a problem with the millstone. It's like, oh my God, it's, how do you cool them and such? But you can take them offline and move that to the same way we do with our normal grid. And so they finally got approval of this. They're very cost prohibitive. But from clean energy, there's nothing cleaner. There's absolutely nothing cleaner than nuclear power. And guess what? When the wind's not blowing, they still work. When the sun's not out, they still work. And hopefully that's the route that we'll finally get going to, because we've been doing it on the submarines for how many years now.
They're great for the base load, just the steady loads.
Just amazing.
Yeah.
It's but there's still people working on it. So, but I appreciate your report, Aaron. Thank you. Any other business?
Yes.
Yes, Paige.
Also in your packet, I failed to mention it, but there's a public information meeting Now, people have been talking about train service, particularly a train stop in Groton forever. Well, there will be meetings, there were 3 meetings, one in Norwich, December 12th, one in Groton, Thursday, December 15th at 12, and a virtual meeting, December 15th at 6:30. And the purpose is Connecticut DOT is conducting a legislative study to investigate feasibility and market for establishing new passenger train station in the town of Groton and Stonington Borough, extending Shoreline East Rail Line, establishing a new passenger rail service from the city of New London to the city of Norwich, and extending bus services in southeastern Connecticut. So the state has allocated a lot of money. There's really a small gap between Shoreline East and the Rhode Island line. And that's what this is focused on. And I think the feds and the state are going to close the gap. Now, where people might be misunderstood, when they hear this, they think, great, we're going to have a train next year. It's not going to be that quick and it's expensive, but this is the last gap, the last mile, so to speak. So again, I would encourage people to participate, probably the Groton meeting, again, Thursday, December 15th, 12 p.m. in person at the Submarine Force Library Museum. You can actually go through the museum for free afterwards if you care to, or the virtual meeting, Thursday, December 15th, 6:30 p.m. If people are interested and they hear this, get in touch with us. We're more than happy to try to share this information. We'll put it on the web as well.
When you say it's a very costly thing and stuff like that, I would assume establishing a line from New London to Norwich, since there is an existing line there, is there? Not that I know of.
Yeah, that's there. Well,
That's an extreme, but to open a station here, you're just tapping into the existing line, correct?
There is a railroad that goes through Norwich.
Is it?
Yeah, it goes
It's a
right-
freight, it's a freight line.
It's a freight line.
Because
it goes up the river.
It may very well be.
Yeah, I think that there's two
Either
different.
side of the river, there's one that goes up.
It used to
Norwich.
take passengers.
And but I don't believe that's on the electrified line.
To answer your question,
Won't be like-
my understanding in dealing with Amtrak is not easy.
Oh.
And so you have the Northeast Corridor, even the state of Connecticut will be challenged to secure space and scheduling for the rail line. So it is quite a logistical hurdle beyond the cost.
So, because I'm naive, so Amtrak owns the lines that even like Shoreline East runs on. Yeah, is that the way it works?
The line itself belongs to a private company that Amtrak pays
Okay,
to use the tracks.
They control it though.
because you see their truck, that's why I was wondering, because now you're dealing with the bureaucracy of Amtrak being where the government, blah, blah, blah.
So the track, physical track, all the way up to Canada belongs to a private company.
Like APX or what's that other, yeah. Interesting. I'm just saying,
It's not as simple as having the state say, yeah, we're gonna extend the line. There's a lot of coordination. There'll be a lot of legal agreements, financial liability, et cetera. It
Mhm.
takes time. But in the legislation from the state, they have acknowledged specifically a train station in Groton. I would encourage people to look, for example, like the backside of the Big Y Plaza.
Mhm.
Look at the land. There's a lot of land in there to put a train station.
The Clam Digger, I think it was called.
I thought it was up a little further because I remember when I first came on, Regan gave a whole talk on where the station was. Yeah, just where the old station was. I was like, okay,
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
was it there? That I just didn't remember it, but I thought it was up further the hill.
They haven't decided where it's gonna go.
Right.
Yeah, all they're focused on right now is the system as a whole, and then the exact location of that train station is yet to be determined.
What kinds of things is this study looking at? That is
It
it?
just started.
Yeah.
But is it like just ridership? I mean, are they starting from zero with the?
It's the interest in it, it's the technical hurdles.
Okay, so
They-
it's a
they've been doing
legal,
This for
Engineering.
a year or so now, half a year.
Like the original, a while ago, when they had that whole Northeast Corridor study, people kind of really got upset. It's because the existing Northeast Corridor line is it has some real physical limitations. It's old, it floods. So I think the engineers are gonna look at, if we extend this, where is the likely scenario? Where would it go? What are the engineering challenges, the physical challenges, and then, of course, different cost scenarios and moving forward.
No, it's interesting, because I know it's been talked about, so that's.
But I think it's also good
Good, going back to our earlier conversation,
the fact that if you could have something like that in Groton, as well as having something in New London, that small 1 mile is a very valuable 1 mile, both for EB and the sub-base and this annual 3,000 workforce that needs to get on train, maybe to go to a nearby township to live
I
in.
think they're talking about putting a station somewhere down there by EV two. Aren't they?
People want one, I'd be surprised.
They're also talking about putting one at the Subforce Museum.
Okay.
As part of that proposal as well.
Oh.
Mainly just for the sub-base. Visitors to the museum, but mainly for the sub-base folks that work at the sub-base to get off.
The goal was,
That's the link in New London to Norwich, that.
Yes,
That was.
if it comes up our side of the
For
line,
lives, right?
it may go up on the other
the
side.
goal was to connect to Rhode Island. I'll tell you why, because the MBTA comes out of Boston and almost, they're pretty close to Connecticut. They're almost to Kingston, which is where URI is. So if Connecticut comes to Rhode Island, you basically are connecting the New York commuter line to the Boston commuter line. They meet
Logan on the
at the
train.
Rhode Island, Connecticut line. We're right there. So it's not, the goal is not local per se, it's to connect the two metro lines.
No, it makes a lot of sense. But
Yes.
the look at the local side, as you said, I mean, as far as I know with EV now, they park people in New London, put them on buses and bring them to Groton.
Yeah, so this is,
Because they don't have any place to park up here. It'll leave.
This, they could stay at any of the commuter lots up and down 95.
Right.
Just come in, yeah. And for us too, it's, there's a certain number of people in sub-base that could take advantage of that. I work with 3 people that live in the Bradford area.
I assume this is gonna go on our Explorer, the same, we'll have that up on that. Very good. Any other additional business? Hearing none, I wish everyone a healthy and happy holiday season, and hopefully we'll have a larger number come January when Rob takes over the, we don't have a gavel here, but that'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second,
Susan's on the line, by the way.
Susan, you want to second the motion to adjourn? George, second the motion to adjourn, please.
well,
only after I find out whether the Savings
Institute is sponsoring a year in Park.
Savings Institute hasn't been around in years. It's Berkshire Bank now. 2019.
All right,
I
I
second,
second that. Oh, she
In
said,
favor?
Second.
I second.
Meeting is
Yeah, thank you
adjourned.
for-
Thank you.
sorry, yeah,
guys.
you're right. You caught me on the technicality.
Oh, yeah.